this is Lady Boulay, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your thumbs up, for your comments, and thank you for sharing the videos. Thank you for all you do to support the channel. And yes, we are commanded to love one another, whether we want to or not, or whether we agree with each other or not. And today I'm talking about black conservatives and a few things to remember when talking about black conservatives. There are some things that we can learn from them, but certainly there are some things about them that we need to be aware of. Black conservatives are not new to black Americans. The first black congressmen were Republicans. They were Republicans because the Republican Party had done some very important things for black Americans. Lincoln was a Republican. He signed the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment. The Republican Party freed the enslaved people, gave them citizenship, and gave the black men the right to vote. The Republican Party were helpful in establishing the Reconstruction era that set black men and women on a course for building businesses, churches, and educational institutions. So the Republican Party has been very vital in the growth and development of black Americans. Now, I said Republican Party because there's a difference in being a conservative and being a Republican. Now, most black Americans are conservative in their personal demeanor. Even though we vote Democratic in the past, we have voted Democratic because some of the legislation that has come out of Congress has been helpful to black people, and that legislation was crafted by a majority Democratic Congress and signed into law by a Democratic president. So we can't just say they've never done anything for black people, because they have, and black people have stuck with the party that has done the most. So black Americans have always been politically savvy in this country to the point that now people want to break us up because then they know that will dilute the voting power. And that brings us to these six staunch black Republicans, conservative, who will get out and say the most outlandish things to black people, and some black people think, oh yeah, they're telling the truth, they're making a point. And so let's start from top left. That's Jesse Lee Peterson, Candace Owens, Larry Elders, Mark Robinson, Byron Daniels, and Dr. Ben Carson. These people exist in the Republican Party as a distraction. They are there to undermine black people and to tell black people whatever white people have told them to tell black people. And if you don't believe them and if you don't go along with them, they say that you're not thinking for yourself, which is ridiculous because they're repeating something that somebody has told them to repeat, Republican talking points. But in their mind, they're thinking for themselves because they are not thinking like the other black people. And it's the okie-doke that we're supposed to fall for. And really most of us don't, but some do. But these people have no political power or say-so in the Republican Party. Now, case in point, Republicans officially snubbed Candace Owens as RNC ends without her speaking. Now, this was in 2020. This was the Republican National Convention when Candace Owens was really on the rise. She had really hit her sweet spot with the Republicans, but they would not let her speak at the convention. Now, fast forward to 2024. Well, she got in some trouble with the Jews, so that might account for the fact that nobody's paying her any attention, nobody with any clout. But this year passed. She also didn't get to speak at the Republican National Convention. But who did get to speak at the Republican National Convention? Amber Rose. Amber Rose has been knocking around here for at least a decade and some. She hasn't done anything constructive or worthwhile, and she hasn't been on a soapbox talking Republican talking points and not tearing black people down either. So Amber Rose just stepped all over Candace and went to the front of the line. And that's how you know she's useless to the Republican Party, except as a talking head to tell black people what white people want black people to know. That's what they do. And that goes for all six of this crowd right here. So Jesse Lee Peterson is like a buffoon that masquerades as a talk show host. And his talking points are always what the Republicans' talking points are. Tearing black people down, criticizing black people, asking these why not questions to black people. But always the focus is on the negative aspects of black Americans. Larry Elder is a conservative talk show host. Of the six of these people, Larry Elder makes the most sense to me, except he always comes across as being angry. And they think they have some real political backing until they run for office. Larry Elder tried to win the recall election when some California Republicans got the bright idea that they were going to recall their governor, Gavin Newsom, after he had won the governorship. So they had the recall election. Leading up to the election, Larry Elder was leading in the polls. But when election day came around, the voters of California, the majority of California voters, decided not to remove Gavin Newsom from office. And he's still in office to this day as governor of California. Mark Robinson, who is the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, who is running for governor of North Carolina, is the smart aleck that said that black people owe white people reparations. Well, he might need those reparations because guess what? Yolanda Hill, the wife of North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, owes the state $132,000 due to issues with her nonprofit Balanced Nutrition. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services found that the nonprofit submitted claims for funding it should not have received. These claims included submitting multiple claims for the same receipt and inflating costs. So she was jacking up the cost of stuff. So, I mean, isn't that cheating, y'all? Or if it's a Republican, maybe it's not cheating. But if a Democrat had done it, it would be cheating. His wife has a nonprofit called Balanced Nutrition, which helped child care facilities get federal funding for nutrition programs. So it's been shut down because the state is investigating misappropriation of funds. And she now has 15 days to repay the money or appeal the case or go to jail if it's not paid. So all that shucking and jiving he's doing, he better see if he can get some donations like Clarence Thomas, see if he can get his hands on some free money. But this is it. You see, they don't want him to be the governor, so they have come up with this. I don't know how he's polling, but they don't want him to be the governor, so they came up with this. So your wife is a thief, is basically what they're saying. Byron Donalds, who is a congressman from Florida, ran around for months making himself look like a clown, thinking that he was going to be picked to be vice president of the United States, talking about he was ready to serve the first day. Well, Byron Donalds has a rap sheet, and it has more than one thing on it. So he has an ex-wife, too, that nobody knew about until recently, or that wasn't public knowledge. And she has had some very salty things to say about him. But he has been running around here trying to do the Republican Party's bidding, throwing their talking points at black people, talking about things were better during Jim Crow. All of that, and he didn't even make the top 3. When they narrowed it down to 3 names, his name was not on the list, and it was never going to be on the list. And black people tried to tell him that, but you know, they get caught up in that Republican bubble, and you can't tell them anything. But anyway, so we won't be seeing much of him from now on, and that's not a bad thing. And that brings us to Dr. Ben Carson. I really regretted that Dr. Ben Carson chose to drop anchor with the Republican Party because he was so well respected in America. Black people were so proud of him. I can just remember when his name first hit the airways. I think he was on the cover of Ebony magazine. That's when he had supposedly operated on those conjoined twins and separated them successfully. Well, the Republicans grabbed hold of him and he went their way. Now, the most striking thing about Dr. Ben Carson retired from Johns Hopkins Hospital when Donald Trump was running in 2016. Around about that time, he retired. He had been a successful surgeon for many years. Instead of Donald Trump making him the Surgeon General or putting him over something that would have been a part of his expertise, he put him over housing and urban development. From way back in the day, they were calling that the black job, y'all. They were calling it the black job. That's the job in the cabinet that the black guy can get. Now, it has changed, but that was the old-timey black guy job. And that's what they gave Dr. Ben Carson. That's all they had for him, a skilled surgeon. And he had all of those people who barely got out of junior college. They had prominent roles. In Trump's administration, but Dr. Ben Carson was overheard. And there was something about him getting some expensive furniture. They tried to embarrass him. So these are 6 of the Republican conservatives, and their function is to serve as a distraction to keep black people from talking about what we want to talk about and stay on the defensive about what they want to talk about. So as long as we're trying to defend reparations, no real progress is going to be made. So these people are a distraction. They give a face to the Republican Party, but no substance. So the Democratic Party is not perfect, but at least the black people can get to speak at the Democratic National Convention. Okay, y'all, thank you for listening, and have a wonderful evening.